All right, here we go. Hey, everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner creator of FSW Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. Joe, how you hanging in there nowadays?
Hey, this is the very first COVID edition of the DeFalco file. So I guess we'll see how it goes. If I have an uncontrollable cough, I'll probably turn the audio off for a minute.
Yeah, so anyone who's listening, if you do hear Joe disappear, he's just taking his COVID cough break, and
Yes.
that's perfectly acceptable. And our guest today is someone who's um, coming along very quickly in the wrestling community and is really shining out here at Future Stars Wrestling. And that is one half of the Bad Bitches, Mr. Jai Vidal. Jay, how you doing, man?
Oh man, I cannot complain. Life is good over here. Nice sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm over here in the Vidal Estates in the undisclosed location in Las Vegas.
Say hi to
And
Matt for
Joe,
me,
don't
will you?
worry if at any point I may or may not live with Matt Vandergriff. But yeah, Joe, if at any time, don't worry if you start coughing, I'll just hot tag in and you don't got to worry about it. All right. I'll take over for you.
Jay, I'm noticing right away the Gangrel Wrestling Academy shirt. Before you got to Las Vegas, this was your starting ground. What was it like training there? And at what point did you hear about Future Stars Wrestling and decide to make your way this way?
Wow. Well, actually, I started my training initially in 2016, February of 2016. And I started at another school, which will not be named. And Gangrel was actually a trainer over there. And he, from day one, just took me under his wing. And what he thought that the trainer over there wasn't doing right, he pulled me aside and hey, like try this instead. And he took me under his wing so much that he was like, hey, come give me car rides. Even though he had his own car, we lived in the same area, and all the way there and all the way back, it would just be lectures on wrestling, on what to do in the business, how to get booked. Unfortunately, at the place where I was, they were very strict on taking bookings. Like the promoter was like, "We don't want you working anywhere else." So for my first 2 years in wrestling, I actually just wrestled like once a month or once every other month in one location. And
Uh,
Gangrel was a big proponent of just saying, hey, yeah, they're not doing things right over here. He opened up his own school. And for about the past 3 years, I was training over there. And so I was looking up, I always wanted to, I actually grew up in Henderson, Nevada for a small amount of my life. From when I was 2 years old to about, so I was like, I want to say 11 years old. And then we moved down to Miami. And um, yeah, I just always wanted to move back, and Future Stars of Wrestling was always that place to go to.
how did you hear about Future Stars Wrestling? Was it through the internet? Was it through relationships you might have still had over here? What takes someone on the East Coast? Um, you know, what is it that caught your eye? How did you, being removed from the West Coast, hear about Vegas wrestling, man?
Man, I was honestly wanting to move back to Vegas, and the very first thing that pops up when I search professional wrestling in Las Vegas or professional wrestling school was Future Stars Wrestling. And I'd been keeping up with Future Stars Wrestling literally since 2017, 2018, and I'd been wanting to do the move over here. I just actually didn't want to leave like Gangrel's Wrestling Asylum until I felt like I was ready to and I could represent Gangrel in the best way possible and not come over here, green and then wear his shirt and him say, "Oh no, I don't know who trained him."
So, Joe, what is it like for you as someone who runs a school to have someone who has the kind of training that Jay got with Gangrel then come to your school and basically say, "Hey, I'm moving here and I want to participate. I want to learn." Is it something that you're always cautious about, willing to give him the chance, but also know that a lot of the guys who, do make a move, might make another move at some point, or end up dropping out, not being seen for, months on end. Is that something that you look at when someone comes to train? Are you upfront and honest in what it takes for them to make it in this industry, I guess?
Well, the thing is, there's a lot of times you get a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails from people that, hey, I want to move to Vegas. I want to train at FSW. And, a small amount have what they claim is experience. Some are brand new. So everybody is going to be different when it comes to that. And the bottom line is, when Jay came by, he ended up coming in really as a student of Sin Bodhi's, because the relationship between Sin and Gangrel is pretty tight. So he kind of came in as one of Sin's new students who trains through us, and after probably a few training sessions, all of a sudden you start to hear the whispers, hey, that Jai Vidal kid he's pretty good. You want to check him out. He looks pretty decent, and you're always looking for somebody that you can immediately use on shows. It's kind of similar. We have a young kid now, Chase Bell, who was like, oh yeah, I trained in Louisiana for a few years and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, hey, did you train at Luke Hawk School? He's like, no. And it was something that we never really heard of. So immediately I put Chase Bell in with Ice Williams, and they had a pretty shitty match. You know what I mean? But as he grew comfortable, you could see that the skill level was there. Same thing with Jai Vidal, that you saw, there was some rust there. It's also getting used to people, but it's seeing that tangible that you feel can be an asset to, your roster. And I remember the first time I saw Jai Vidal wrestle in a match. I believe it was at Beers and Body Slams, and it was against Douglas James. And I was extremely impressed, and we had gone back and forth. His original character was some ecstasy-driven, what's it called? I forgot the term right now. EDM. that was his first gimmick, which I thought was the shits. So now you have to overcome that, and it was like, so. But the bottom line was they just had a match. It wasn't storyline driven. It was just two guys going out there, and you say, wow, this kid can really go. So now all of a sudden it makes your mind kind of wander a little and think, hey, what's a good option for him? And his idea was way different than my idea initially. He is that very outward going guy, kind of Adrian Adonis-ish, very flamboyant. And I personally felt that, there's always the escalators and the ceilings. And I felt that he wouldn't be able to go past a certain ceiling because he was relying too much on that character than his wrestling ability, which I thought far outweighed his character, because he just got out of one that wasn't a character. It was terrible. And then he was going on to the other one, which, again, an outwardly flamboyant gay character doesn't always sit well, And then I remember on New Year's Eve last year, we decided to do a New Year's show. And there was a guy out of Arizona, and his name was Parada. and he came in and pretty much did the exact gimmick that Jai Vidal was looking to do. And he came in there, and the crowd really ate it up. And I remember Funny Bone put him over at the end of the match, and it was again another day where a new star was born. And I felt if Jai Vidal was going to go with the gimmick he was going to go with, the best way to do it was to have Parada, who kind of had been doing that for a while, and let's see if these guys can sync. And we kind of brought him out as heels, and immediately the fans loved him. So all of a sudden, we had a new top-tier babyface tag team that we created in a matter of weeks.
Wow. Jay, how was it for you? I guess the first thing being, with your initial character, what was it that had you playing essentially the party boy? And did you feel that was a good fit? And what was your idea for a character after that, before stumbling onto, this great concept for the Bad Bitches?
So initially it was a few years back that I actually, it's a funny story. I used to go to raves a lot, like a lot.
Sure.
Like when I say party a lot, like go to raves, and there was a point when I kind of believed in the character. And then there was a point when I outgrew the character, and I outgrew the character long before coming to Vegas, probably a year or two before coming to Vegas. I remember I went to Ultra 2018. And by this point, I had been like 6 months into Gangrel school, where he retrained me from the ground up, got rid of my bad habits from the old school. And, Gangrel's a very caring, like I cannot say enough good things about him. I remember he pulled me aside one day after I missed a show to go to a music festival. And he said, Mijo, I care about you, but if you don't want to, you're not going to put in the work, then I don't want you at my school. I don't need to take your money. Simple as that. And he's like, you got potential, but you're wasting it. Going over there, like, partying, getting messed up. And it clicked in my head. And then I got rid of the raving lifestyle. I got rid of my raving friends. And so coming over here, I actually had this idea long before coming to Vegas. I ordered the gear 8 months before coming to Vegas, but the gear maker just took forever with it. So I would have started way earlier, but I always thought in wrestling that you should be who you are times 10. And if you see me hanging around any of the other wrestlers in the back, this is who I am times 10. When I first started doing the Jai Vidal gimmick, it was actually, I think, the very last match that I had with going back to the Darth Raver, it was called Jaden Rhythm. I remember Joe DeFalco, he flat out told me, he's like, that is the worst name I've ever heard in my life, Jaden Rhythm. And if you ever talk to Joe DeFalco, you could go on a 5-minute rant, just full on roasting you. And he just went on that is the absolute worst name I've ever heard in my life. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I couldn't argue with it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it was actually Joe, it was a Halloween show. It wasn't the beer, it was a Halloween show. I remember because it was Matt Vandergrift went up against Sid Bodie that night, and it was really cold out. I could remember that it was freezing out, you could see your breath. And Douglas James and I just looked at each other just warm up, let's do this. But that I wasn't actually meant to be facing Douglas James that day. I think somebody might have pulled out or something. And I got a text from Joe DeFalco early in the morning. I was just going to go as a student to help, set up everything, pay your dues as you should. And I got a text from Joe saying, make sure you bring your gear today. You're going to be going up against Douglas James. And I said, thank God, because prior to this, at FSW, something that humbles you, you have to prove yourself. You have to, it doesn't matter where you come from. You're going to be put in these 6-man matches or these four-way tag, and like you have to stand out. I feel like that is the best challenge. That's the best way that I grew from that, because all of 2019 was just like me hustling to try to stand out on every one of those matches I would be put on.
Sure.
And then going into the Jai Vidal gimmick, once I finally got to do it and, you know, finally got to get out there, and like, first of all, I remember my first match as Jai Vidal was against Damian Drake. And it was right after the Douglas James match. And I remember going out there and just like feeling comfortable. It didn't feel like I was playing a character. It felt like I was being myself times 100. And I'd met Parada before. Believe it or not, Parada, I believe, was one of my first tag team partners in FSW when we had I was still doing the Raver gimmick, and we had like a 6-man tag match. I think it was me, Parada, and Hero Lou maybe, and I could be wrong, don't quote me. And I forgot who the guys were. Maybe Vinny, VIP Vinny, Laz, and somebody else. I can't remember off the top of my head. But so me and Parada had already, like, you know, kind of clicked a little bit. Joe ended up bringing him in for the New Year show, and, you know, that's when Parada absolutely stood out. And not soon after, I remember going, I think it was a show right after, I get over there and I just sat down, put my bag down, like, ooh, like, you know, I in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm probably going to be like, you know, like a 6-man match or something, you know, time to try to stand out again. And Parada comes over to me and he's like, I think we're the Bad Bitches. And I'm like, huh? He's like, there's a name on there and it says Bad Bitches. I think that's us. And I'm like what? Like I know I'm a bad, what? No, like, and then we get there and we look at the card and surely it says Bad Bitches, no names underneath, so you still don't know. You know, it's like a Sky High versus these guys versus Bad Bitches. And then Joe comes in, walking in, and he's like, you're the Bad Bitches. And I'm like, well, shit, I guess we're the Bad Bitches. Excuse my language. But
so Joe, wait, is that how it went down, where it was shrouded in secrecy who the Bad Bitches were?
You know, I've always been the creator of names, so being that they were that flamboyant characters, I know Maz used to call herself a bad bitch all the time, and I felt would better than the two flamboyant guys to be called the Bad Bitches. And obviously, as per usual, it's stuck. And now everywhere they go, people know who the Bad Bitches are.
And you know, Jay, with that, how did you and Parada, how do you then go from, okay, you go into this match, you don't really know that you are the Bad Bitches, but you are those characters essentially. You've just been given a name. What goes about it for you guys then to start talking over how you take it and develop it? You know, whether it be through how your partnership works in the ring, or how your partnership would work out of the ring, in terms of now you are going to have an opportunity to do some pretty sweet merchandise and, you know, things that you can think of that usually when you're a singles wrestler, you're just kind of in control. But when you're, you know, in a tag team or in a faction, you're part of a, you know, comprehensive unit. What was that relationship like, and how did you guys feel out where you guys were going to go with this?
I think from the get-go, as soon as we found out that we were teaming together, I remember talking to him and I said, yeah, I think we could do something special. Like, I remember just looking at him and I said, like, I think we could do something special here. Like, let's not just, you know, go out there separately, or like, you know, go out there like two singles competitors in a tag match. I'm like, let's go out there and let's go out there like a team. I said, you still do your little thing, right? Where like you raise your hand and like, you know, you look to the back. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, open your legs wide. I'm going to start crawling through you. And, you know, like right underneath. And, you know, like you go this way. And like we practice our entrance right before the show. literally maybe like 15 minutes before the show started, we had the idea of what song he wanted to use. He brought like, I brought up a song that was a little too hood. He brought up a song that was a little too like, you know, pop. And we found like that mesh in between with the Beyonce Nicki Minaj song. And it was great. And when we were going over our match, I was just like, oh, you hit the, you know, the Naomi, the rear view, you know? And I'm like, what if I do a leapfrog? And then there you go right there with the rear view. And poor Mondo Roxy was the first one to take it. And if you watch that match back, he just took it head on. if you ask him, he says that is like, it almost knocked him out, because he just like, you know, I jumped. So like, you know, he got his head right up and it was right there and it just hit him full force. He did not stop.
Oh man. Better Mondo than myself or Joe. So, you know, Joe, as what I like about, as Jay talks about how it's coming together for them, he just has this excitement. Is that something that you like to see when your suggestion starts to manifest into these characters? Is it something that you are either critical on if they're not going the way you see it should be going, or is it something, you know, obviously if you see it's going well, but if you see something that maybe they're doing that's a little different than what was in your mind, how do you take the what they're doing and what your vision is and kind of compromise in the end?
Well, when I get involved, I get involved. So, you know, I give more freedom than pretty much anybody. But I also pay attention and I see things. It's kind of like early on with the Unguided. It didn't go the way, you know, they had an idea of where they wanted to go. And as I listened to the idea and how I thought it would proceed, early on, it didn't mesh at all. And a bunch of minds came together to bring it where it is today. You know, you can't credit one person, you know, but I do get credit for it. And Matt gets credit and Damian Drake gets credit. But the thing is, with the Bad Bitches, it was kind of like, okay, we have this idea. How is it going to grow? I've put a lot of tag teams together that have shit the bed because all they cared about is, and this is local teams that they could have worked together, but they really chose not to. Instead of being a mid-card, or again, these guys started off as a low-card tag team. We didn't know what was going to happen with them. You know, there's always that pecking order, and where we say the A list and the B list. Well, Bad Bitches started at the bottom of that B list. And within no time, they kind of became the head of that B list. And all of a sudden now they're sniffing the A list. And that's because they're working together to become as good as they can be. They're not content with feuding with Creature Feature and the Suavecitos and teams that are on the rise. They want to go after the RMB and Death Proof, and they want to prove that they're as good as the Unguided. And when you have a couple of guys, as I always said, it's about getting the opportunities. And if you succeed, you'll get more opportunities. And you can see from when they first started working as tag matches to a couple of months later, you could see that Joe DeFalco liked what was going on with the Bad Bitches. You know, there's a lot of teams that were trying to fight to get positions for. And, you know, because of the pandemic and things that happened, you know, Parada didn't always make it out once we restarted everything in March. Or closed down in March. We reopened again. We probably didn't run stuff till July or August. Jay was put in some single stuff where, again, he continually excelled, and we knew the skill level was there. Then we opened it up a little bit and had an idea, and bringing Parada back in, that we had the Bad Bitches and the former Bonus Boys, and, we were going to have a match. And shockingly enough, we were kind of pitching ideas and what they were looking to do, and I didn't think it made certain sense of the beatdown after the Bonus Boys would win the match. And it was like, well, that kind of destroys them twice. And the Bonus Boys actually came up with the idea and said, hey, well, what if the Bad Bitches pull the upset and then we lay them out? And I thought that was a perfect idea. That was the way to jump, because we always talk about there's Unguided, there's Death Proof, there's the RMB. Those are the three teams,
right,
in the A list. And you really can't have three teams in an A list. You need four teams, because that way they can kind of, bandy back and forth. And, that was the day. And, we eagerly watched. Great match. Crowd was really into Parada and Jay. And when they pulled the upset, the crowd went crazy inside the arena, and then they got beat down pretty hard. And unfortunately, this past week, we were going to do our return and have the rematch between the two teams. But now it's an eagerly anticipated rematch, because you got a team that's been tag team champions 2 or 3 times, and you got the fastest rising tag team, in FSW, along with the Unguided. So it's like, we've built up a feud that was nowhere to be seen. And that's why we continually grow as a company, because of the fresh new things that we got going on, and always bringing in that new talent that, as singles guys, Josh can always be considered, he's a guy that I look at as a future No Limits champion. But,
sure,
he might be a future No Limits champion and tag team champion. He's got that much, skill level, personality wise, he's without a doubt a guy you can bust balls with. And, if you're around when we're there, don't expect it to be politically correct, because it's not going to be, and Josh takes it as well as he can give it. And I'm pretty sure there's some people that are a little uncomfortable on certain things that are said, but we are all adults and we are all approving, and we just have a good fun time. And it also makes it a lot easier when you're having fun doing what you love to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Jay, for you, what is that perspective? For me, when I look at gay characters, and obviously there goes so many different routes you can take, and I love the fact that you're tapping into yourself and just heightening yourself. But you did make the list this year for the QWI 100 2020's best LGBTQ pro wrestlers. You were number 40 there. Next year you'll probably be number 10, right? We're moving up and cracking the top list here, though. But it's nice that you're being recognized on something like this from SB Nation, because when I look at you, I look at a wrestler who happens to be gay. A lot of times what you end up seeing is a gay person who's a wrestler, and it's it just is used to the wrong advantage. Your thing is you're a wrestler first. You know,
I'm gonna chime in quickly there, Matt.
yeah, please.
We were having these discussions with Jay and the character. I specifically told him that the way the character develops, you need to be Jake Atlas. Jake Atlas is a wrestler who happens to be gay. And I thought that Jay was going a little overboard on being a gay wrestler who happened to wrestle, and I felt that the money in him long term is being Jake Atlas in that situation. Now, he's kind of adapted and they're in that realm, and there's plenty of time for characters to develop and them. But I remember specifically that was the one thing I didn't want him to go too over the top, because then I would just think it was a play off just being gay, and eventually people would sour on that character. It's like, be true to yourself, but also excel at what you're good at. And I felt that needed to be said at that time, because I felt he might be going a little over the top, where I felt that it wasn't really necessary.
Yeah, Jay, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree 110% with the both of you. And Joe actually told me that after my first match with Damian Drake. And he, said, hey, like, don't let it be this either. Like my first match with Damian Drake, I remember just like feeling out. It was really testing the waters. I do feel, especially once you do try a new character out, you try those levels to see, which frequency is going to go best. And how can I click with the crowd, but also deliver? Because being an LGBTQ wrestler, you're almost facing these stigmas already going into it, to where people expect you to wrestle like a woman, but still be able to hang on with the guys, right? And I don't mean wrestle like a woman in too negative of a connotation, unfortunately. And I credit schools like Future Stars of Wrestling and Gangrel's Wrestling Asylum, because they don't treat their women any different than they treat their men when it comes to training. Those girls do not get baby. That's why you see girls like Sander Moon, like Alice Blair, and Maserati. Like these girls, Lacey Ryan, they could hang with the guys. And there's something to be said about that, because unfortunately in other schools, and I feel like that happens with LGBTQ guys as well, where, maybe the trainers don't take them seriously. So they're like, okay, you can't do a leapfrog. Well, instead of doing something, 100 times until you get it right, oh, you do it like 2 times. Yeah, whatever. It's okay, whatever. And unfortunately, that tends to happen a lot. And when it comes to other LGBTQ wrestlers too, I know exactly what you're talking about, to where it's almost like they're so flamboyant that they forget that this is, that this is in the sense of sport, that you got to go out there and perform, and you got to go out there. That's my goal, was always being an LGBTQ wrestler. And I remember when I first thought about doing this gimmick initially, because as I said, like I ordered the gear and all before even moving to Vegas. I talked to Gangrel about it, and Gangrel was in the same boat that everybody else, including Joe, was on. Like he didn't want me doing like something too flamboyant to where it doesn't, my wrestling ability doesn't get seen. And I remember him telling, and even when I went back during quarantine, because I had to move back to South Florida, unfortunately, I got kicked out of the place where I was living at. They said, oh, you can't pay the bill. This before the stimulus check was a thing. I got kicked out, so I had to, unfortunately, resettle, reset and everything. And I went back to Florida, and I, Gangrel got to see this character for the first time. And I remember when I would get in the ring with him, he'd say, okay, you need to start picking your moments to when to be this flamboyant character. Because if you're doing it, the whole time throughout the whole match, it means nothing. But if you pick your moments, and then in between, you just like, you're this killer, and that's where the money is.
That makes sense. Joe, with having someone like Gangrel in the fold, or let's even say, Maserati and others working at OVW. How is it for you when you see the wrestlers go back to those places and then come back to Vegas? Can you see some kind of growth in them by getting that extra experience and having those extra eyes that are, very, very experienced in the business?
Well, like when Jay came in, he had that base already because of Gangrel. But when he came to FSW, we helped grow it. We didn't try to change anything. We saw his ability, and I think we did a great job that
Absolutely
helped him get to where he is now. That I'm not going to say he couldn't have gotten there with Gangrel, but now he had new eyes that also are very smart in the business. Gangrel looks at it this way. Well, we got Sin and Kenny and D'Lo and all these other guys looking at it from a little bit of a different perspective. And while Gangrel knew him when he was a baby in the business and nurtured him to grow, we also found, hey, there's these things that we feel you can work on, because again, he's still transitioning as a character and as a wrestler. He's getting to the point where he left and he's getting pretty good, but he wasn't great yet. He wasn't ready yet. And then we were able to, put him under our wing, and then not only wrestling in matches, but the day-to-day of now going to a wrestling school where he gets to work with Matt Vandergriff and Damian Drake and Lacey Ryan and Cody and Remy and all of these guys and Ice Williams, and this huge talent pool that he gets to train and work on new things with, and that's what I always scream and yell about the school. As good as the trainers are, it's the fact that the students that go there, I can't tell you a better training school that has as much talent as we do. I truly believe we have the best talent around. So how do you get better? Well, you wrestle people better than you. And there's always somebody better than you when you come into FSW. You never know who's going to be in there. TJ Perkins walks in sometimes, helps train, but sometimes he just pops in to train. And Davari, hey, I need to roll around. I got to go do MLW. Hey, I got to go do this. And all of a sudden you have all these minds and skill levels that are there. And in most cases, offering advice to the guys who are trying to get to that next level. And, that's what I love the most about everything that's going on, because you never know who's just going to pop in and offer advice. Like I said, with Lacey, you got Tom Howard. He shows up and, he's laid back and quiet, but when he watches wrestling, if he sees some shitty wrestling going on, he ain't going to let it continue without saying something.
Joe, can I say something to add to the point that you were making earlier?
Oh, you can always add something.
I really do highly credit all the character work that I learned over here to Future Stars of Wrestling. I always say, I got my bread and butter, my basics, my how to hit the ropes, where to be at the right time, et cetera, over at Gangrel's. And all the character stuff, especially, of course, growing on my wrestling, that too, but all the character stuff, especially, I got it here. I remember bringing this character up to Sin Bodhi right before starting it. And he had these out there suggestions that ended up finally, clicking in my head and working for me. Go in the mirror. How would this character that you want to bring out look like if he was mad? How would he look like if he was sad? How would he look like if he was, scared but wanted to fight, but scared, but, and it's all these, and including people like Cody, and who is an amazing trainer over there at Future Stars Wrestling. He is, I cannot put the guy over enough, a genuine soul that will literally watch every single match that happened on the show that night and come back with critiques. And people usually like to hang out with people in wrestling who tell them that they're doing great, but that's never how you grow. If your inner circle is just telling you all the stuff that you're doing great and not how to get better, then they probably don't want to see you grow, or they don't know enough to tell you. That's why over here too, I made it my business to like surround myself with people who I feel that are better than me, the Damian Drakes and the Matt Vandergriffs and the Lacey Ryans,
Oh yeah, they're all way better than you. Yeah.
Like they build me up, and they push me to do better. Lacey, I can't say enough good things about Lacey Ryan. Like, it's thanks to her that my in-ring cardio is great, because she will flat out, be just like running cardio drills. I used to hate cardio, and she's, come on, Jay, get in here. He's like, I don't know. No, we're gonna do this. Okay, let's do it.
Joe, when you look at how you get an audience to respond, and once you see their response to the Bad Bitches, did you initially think of them as heels or faces, and did the audience's embracing of them ever change where you saw them going?
Well, like I said, when Parada came in for the New Year's show, he seemed to be genuinely appreciated by the fans. And Jay didn't really have much of a character at the time. He was the EDM guy. So, the only thing people may have noticed was like, yeah, this kid seems to be pretty good. But when you put him together and then you have him wrestle popular team like Sky High, well, you're immediately going to assume that they're supposed to be the heels. So you tell them to come out and be kind of douchey, but them being kind of douchey is their shtick. So now the crowd's kind of liking them busting balls and doing what they're doing. And you immediately see that, they want to like these guys. And there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to change their mind. They either like you or they don't like you. And, it's happened many times with whether it was Remy or Hammerstone or Graves. Those heel turns didn't last very long. Hammerstone became the top heel in FSW through hard work. We pandemic, we come back. People see a guy that they respect, who's been in FSW for years, who's, despite the fact that he has grown as a superstar and can wrestle pretty much anywhere in the world, he chooses to wrestle in Vegas at FSW. So the fans have nothing to do but appreciate that guy. So when you like somebody personally and you appreciate everything they do, nobody wants to boo that person. It's like when you're a heel and you bring friends, we try to tell you, hey, it really helps if your friends boo you and not cheer you, because we're trying to get you to be a heel, because that's what your role is. And in some cases it works, but in a lot of cases it doesn't. So you go where the crowd tells you to go. There's gray areas. Ice Williams is that real tweener that if he wrestles somebody who is hated, he will be cheered more. But when he wrestled Funny Bone, they were booing him out of the building. If he wrestles Chris Bay, they're going to boo him out of the building. And that's also okay, because it's 2021. It's not 1999. And there has to be a heel and there has to be a face. I personally love the heel and the face because it's easier to get somebody to root for the good guy. And when somebody does something dastardly, you want the fans to want to see that guy getting beat up. In FSW, there's not a huge amount. Nick Bugatti, Maserati, no matter what they've done, they've been around forever, and they're just not liked as characters. You know, Lights Camera Action is a newer group that Braxton is one of the most annoying people that you're going to see. So he is utterly disliked, you know? But then there's guys that were in transitioning and they kind of come across as heels, but they also kind of come across as faces. And there's only so many people that, you know, a Hero Lou is a young up and coming guy that the crowd really seems to like. Why is that? Well, they see this big, you know, strapping Samoan guy who's got some personality. He looks like $1 million. The FSW fans look at him and say, hey, that's a guy down the line that we could see that's one of our guys that made it there. And will quickly grow to that person. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's the most difficult thing, is for people to give a shit. You know, you need to do something that makes people give a shit about you.
Yeah.
And you know, we had this transition, you know, a tag team that very quickly has had some excellent matches, the Suavecitos. And they were put in a bad situation. We had them coming out as baby faces, and then they would wrestle a cool heel like the Unguided. Well, the Unguided have a lot of juice when it comes to the FSW fans. So they want to like the Unguided. They like Damian Drake. They really like Matt Vandergriff. So they're going to see this exciting tag team that looks like they're the next, you know, tag team that's going to make it in FSW. And the crowd wants to cheer the Unguided because the Suavecitos are this young team, kind of brashy. You know, Danny's kind of got that attitude. So they're not liked even though they're baby faces. Then they step in the ring with the Bonus Boys. And the Bonus Boys have been around forever, tag team champions, good guys, bad guys. Again, to the long-term fans, the Bonus Boys, everybody knows them. So even though they're heels, the Suavecitos are not considered that team that's going to beat the Bonus Boys. So it's hard for the fans to get behind them. Now they go 2 for 2, the Suavecitos. They lose both matches, but they have really good matches with both of the teams. So now it's like, where do we go? So then we had them work Death Proof because we're trying to get these young guys experience wrestling tag teams. Again, knock it out of the park. 3 for 3. All good matches. But Death Proof's like the most popular tag team in FSW. So, of course, the Suavecitos are booed out of the building. And we kind of played into that where they had an issue with Sky High, who the crowd gets behind also, and felt that the only way we're going to get some notoriety on the Suavecitos is for them to be heels. And for them to have a chip on their shoulder because they came out week after week giving everything they had to the FSW fans. And guess what? They didn't give a fuck. Well, you didn't give a fuck about us. We don't give a fuck about you. Fuck you all. We're doing this for ourselves. So, you know, we're going to see where that goes in that situation. And, you know, the Suavecitos and Bad Bitches, you know, that could be something down the line that we're going to see because, you know, we got a lot of these tag teams and there's going to be a lot of rotation and there's a lot of jockeying for position. And as much as everybody loves everybody, everybody still strives to be the best. And as long as it's a good, healthy competition, it just makes everybody better.
Jay, with you being together with Parada and having a chemistry, do you feel like do you enjoy tag team wrestling and that aspect of storytelling, or was it easier for you to absorb single wrestling and how you tell a story as a singles wrestler?
So I quickly started learning that tag team wrestling is this whole other monster.
Right.
And, you know, people try to see, you ask any professional wrestler out there, you know, which one, a lot of them would prefer to have singles match. Even me, you know, every now and again, I love having, you know, a singles match. But tag, I've grown to love. And it was love hate, because like at first it was like, I remember when when I was tagging with Parada, and, you know, we were just having like these matches that just felt like two, even though we were a tag team, it still felt to us like, you know, one would get in there and then do something, then the other one would get in there and do something. It didn't felt like, you know, a cohesive unit.
Right.
It wasn't until after the pandemic that we both like started looking deep into tag team wrestling and saying, hey, okay, there's an art form to this. There's a way, you know, to like be able to tell that story that you're a cohesive unit. There's, you know, tag teams that I've studied from, you know, going back to like the heavenly bodies, all the way now to like FTR. And I remember something that FTR did on AEW that just did, and it was so simple, and it stood out to me because it made everybody know that they're a unit. One goes to the other and whispers in his ear, and as he's about to go into, you know, go into the corner, go into tag rope, he pulls him back and then whispers in his ear, and then they both shake their, and it was just a small things. And I always think, you know, wrestling is about moments. It's about those small things. The moves, you add the moves on there and, you know, it all meshes well together. But if you could tell me all the moves that you remember from the Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair match, then more power to you. But I remember when he looked at, you know, Ric Flair and said, I'm sorry, I love you. You know, it's moments. And if singles wrestling, you're able to have those moments in tag team wrestling. Now you're trying to tell that story, but with 4 people and the referee, because the referee is as much involved in that a lot of times than anybody else is.
Right. When you look at the time you spent at FSW, is there a particular moment that stands out to you as one of those pinnacles where you're just like, yep, I made the right decision to come here?
It was literally, I always knew that I made the right choice coming. I'm a big believer in going with your gut, because every time that I've gone against my gut, it always, like, you know, whether it's been relationships, whether it's been even something as simple as like going out one night. I remember I was in Florida and I was like, oh, I'm going to go out. And I was like, something my gut told me not to. I did anyways. I got in a car accident, you know, like that gut feeling. I go by that gut now. And that gut feeling said, go to Vegas. There's something for you over there. And when I went back to Florida, I remember just thinking the whole time, I'm gonna go back to Vegas. It's you know what I mean? It's meant to be. I remember Joe actually hit me up midway through the quarantine and say, hey, like, you know, like the place, like, you know, ready, you know, type of thing. Like, you know, the always got the door open type of thing. So
I had to offer him the better. I had to offer him the better sin rate. You know what I mean? It was like, come back. You know, we're gonna charge you what we should charge you. You know, you're not suited.
So I think that pinnacle moment was oh Lord, I think that pinnacle moment was was when I came back. And I remember coming back, I think it was like September 11th or something like that. Maybe, I could be wrong. The show could have been like September. It was around that timeline. And I remember coming in, moving into my new apartment, and I got a text from Joe, and he said, so tomorrow it's going to be you and Lacey Ryan. And I was super excited. I had my first intergender match the year prior against Bryn Thorne. And it just, you know, Bryn Thorne could go. Bryn Thorne's one of those girls that she could go. And I was really worried about having an intergender match prior to that. I remember after, I'm like, oh, I could do intergender matches, you know, with girls that could, you know, hold their own and get in there and, like, you know, look like they belong. And Lacey Ryan, of course, I've trained with her before, man. And this is the best compliment that I could give her. When you're in there, she moves like one of the boys. Like, she, like, you know, like everything from the hits, like you feel, you know, it's, and I love that. That's, you know, that's, as a professional wrestler, you love to, somebody who could make their hits look good and you feel it a little bit, you know? Like, yeah, if you feel it and it looks good, money. But so I remember him telling me that. I go over to the show. I was super nervous. I'd been wrestling these shows at Gangrel's Wrestling Asylum prior to that, but they were no fan shows because this is before Governor DeSantis over there, like he opened everything back up.
Right.
At this point, nothing was open around the time that I came back over here to Vegas. So it was like we were doing these no crowd shows. We're just kind of like, already getting used to that, to just playing to like, the camera audience. It's a whole nother feel. You feel everything a lot more, I'll tell you that. And coming back over here was like, okay, we got a crowd. And I remember just like, I was super nervous right before the match. I remember looking over at Lacey and I said, like, what if they don't remember me? Like, that thought just kept creeping in my mind. Like, what if I just come out there and they're just like, oh, yeah. And then like, the one person in the back. So I was nervous. And as soon as I come out, I like the crowd reaction. It was an energy that I'd never felt before. And they cheered really hard. And I was so humbled by that. I got in the ring and they started a welcome back chant. And it was something that I did not expect. I remember Joe actually told me right before the show, hey, like, you're going to grab the mic and you're going to cut a promo and, talk about how you're happy to be back and this and that. So for me, that was, for one, that Joe gave me that opportunity to do that was special to me. And even more special was the fact that the crowd remembered me. I cannot tell you enough how that was my favorite moment in professional wrestling in 2020. Of course, there was a lot to choose from, but that was definitely like, the pinnacle where it clicked in my head. Like, yeah, I'm meant to be here. And even I was at the GCW show supporting my good friend Matt Vandergriff, and Sefa Fatu was there. And Sefa actually messaged me when I left from Vegas to Florida initially in March, and he said, hey, Oos, like, do everything that you can. I understand you got to go, but do everything that you can to come back. Like, this is your home over here. Like, you got, like, a connection here with the crowd like none other. And that meant a lot to me. And then when I came back and I saw him over at that GCW show, he's like, what'd I tell you? He's like, I told you that, and I was like, yeah, you're right.
Hey, Joe, as we kind of get close to wrapping here, hearing that from Jay, what does that mean to you to know that guys like Sefa and Bay will give that encouragement, like, hey, this is a home for you, fans appreciate you? What does that mean to have the boys actually keeping the other boys who have that work ethic, who have the talent, around in the area so that, they can develop?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's amazing. It's when I started this, I did this because I love wrestling. And, I try to treat people with the utmost of respect. I'll bust balls, I'll goof around, but I take this as serious can be done. And when I see people that are putting forth the effort and I see people that want this, I will go out of my way 100-fold to help anybody I can in any situation. Whether it's talking to somebody in a bigger company, whether it's trying to send an email to someone, I am always looking to help out. Sometimes a little too much. It's like, people try to get booked elsewhere and different things. And I'll send messages to people that I know in that company or whatever. Hey, maybe you should take a look at this guy. Hey, I have a guy. Can I send you a link? Because I'm so proud of the fact that so many of our guys have so much ability, but it's not only that, it's the fact that they do give back. And Chris Bay will come back in training and he'll work with a lot of people. And guys like Ice and Shogun are basically put under his wing. And he was taught. And Kevin Cross may have taught him certain things. And then Kevin, does the ultimate put over and puts over Chris Bay before he leaves. He wants this. It's the legacy of Las Vegas wrestling. In 2009, Vegas wrestling didn't exist. And in 11 years, our legacy is as big as anybody's because of all the hard work that everybody has put into it. And it isn't doing it once or twice a week. It's every single day of putting in the time, putting in the effort, trying to come up with ideas to make things better. You know, the fan base is phenomenal. It's like Jay, said, he comes back and the crowd makes him feel so welcome to be back that how do you not want to perform for these people? And we're talking about a crowd of 40 or 50 people limited, the hardcore of hardcore FSW fans that, will follow us. I've always said if we had karaoke night tomorrow at the FSW arena, 28 people would show up just to support FSW. We have sponsors. Hey, everybody, we said we can't even sell any food at the FSW arena because everybody would go to Firehouse Subs before the show and buy a Firehouse sub and not a hot dog or nachos from FSW arena. Because the fans wanted to show love to the people that were showing love to us. And it's like just one giant conglomerate that we've become because of everything, because of the fans, because of the wrestlers, because of the students, because of the staff, because of the production, because of the connections. It's like, unfortunately, we repeat ourselves, but that's what every company should strive for. I've seen a lot of companies that, do they even exist anymore? They have made no effort to do anything. Right. It's like they're not training, they're not running shows, they're not running empty arena shows. We're in a tough time. We're not making money. We can't run shows. We're losing students because of this. But right. The people that are there, they get us 1,000%. And that's the way a business succeeds. It isn't like, hey, how much money are we making this month? Hey, we need to cut stuff down because we're not making any money. It's like that long-term goal is still the long-term goal. And the only problem is, unfortunately, that long-term goal may now be 2022 or 2023 and not 2021. But, you strive to do it. Did things happen this year that fucking suck? Yeah, absolutely. There's many times I sit here and like, Jesus Christ, this fucking blows. Certain issues that you have no control of regarding other people. And all you could try to do is be the best person and the best that you can be. And, that's all I strive to do, and put in the time and put in the effort. There's always going to be haters. There's always going to be people that want to see you fail. And you know what? That's why at times, as much as I love Facebook and stuff to run a wrestling business, it's horrible because the hatred is just mind-boggling that everybody, no matter what is said, will comment negatively just to comment negatively. If you don't feel that way, I know myself, I just ignore it. I might not like something somebody says. I don't feel the need to throw in my 2 cents to every single issue that is going on. Fight the bigger fight.
Yeah. Jay, as we wrap, I'm gonna have one more question for Joe, but from your perspective and, being here now for a little while and, having the opportunities that you've been given, for you, where do you see yourself going in the business? What are your aspirations from this point?
Oh man, I'm definitely, and my closest of friends, we talk about this constantly, what our goal is, and we are all in getting signed mode. Like, we put it out there in the universe, and we're getting ready for when preparation meets opportunity. That's why you'll see us day in and day out, when it comes to training, like, getting in there, training hard, first in, last out, at least, the days that we can make it there. And we're out. Like, me personally, speaking for myself, I am in that mode where I am trying to get signed, because I know that if I put up that effort, I refuse to be on my deathbed and wonder what if. That's the thing that gets me up every morning. That's the thing that pushes me every day, because I want to know that in this lifetime, I gave it my all. And if, for whatever reason, which again, going back to intuition, I do got that intuition that everything will be just fine. But for whatever reason I don't make it, then I can say that I gave it 120%. And when it comes to future and FSW, man, like, what makes me happy is, helping younger people out. Like, I actually came to the school when Ricky and Danny from the Suavecitos were about 3 months in. And something that, I absolutely love those guys, first and foremost. Something that I do give credit to them is that they would always ask me questions. And even to this day, like, we'll be training, and then, like, Danny will ask me, what could I have done better? I'm like, oh, like, maybe you did this, but maybe you could do this instead. And, people like Alice Blair, the little, short, she's, hungry, and she's quiet and timid, but she will come up to me and, she'll say, hey, could you help me work on this move? Could you help me work on chaining? Could you? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, and, Nick Sanders, another one, Brett the Threat, like, there's so much talent to look out for that's hungry, that asks questions. And to me, like, what makes me happy is seeing things that I told them, and, like, they start applying into their matches.
Sure.
And so and of course, whether it be the tag team belts or the no limits belts, or even when I woke up a little bit, get that heavyweight championship. But, like, there's a championship is in my foreseeable future. It's like Joe says, it's that healthy competition. We all want to be the best. And I think that's what makes FSW so great, is that since we all want to be the best, we're all pushing each other to be better. We're all, trying to one up each other. And in doing so, in the healthiest way possible, we're bringing up future stars of wrestling, and we're bringing up Las Vegas wrestling. And being here, Las Vegas wrestling now has such a special place in my heart, because I understand how it's, been slept on in the past, and how now it's just starting, to get like that notoriety, where I look around and I'm like, yeah, no, this should have had the notoriety. And, it's thanks to guys paving the way, like Cross, or like, Chris Bay. That's another one who definitely has inspired me, because I remember just, like, 3 or 4 weeks before I decided, I was on the road, and, picking his brain, and then he got signed on. Like, wow, like, it's achievable. That goal is there, and it is achievable.
All right, final question, Joe. We have a great sitcom in the history of television, and The Odd Couple. You have Felix, who is the neat freak. Oscar is the person who is a slob. Between Matt Vandegrift and Jay, which is the Felix, and which do you think is the Oscar? And you're still on mute, Joe.
Oh, there you go. I had a cough. I had a coughing outbreak earlier, so I didn't want to cough in front of everybody. Being Puerto Rican, I think Jay was instilled at a very young age not to be a slob. Puerto Rican mothers, abuelas, grandmothers, they whooped some ass if you left a mess. So I would think it was a hard case, but I would have to say Matt would have to be the Oscar.
Is that true, Jay? Is Matt the sloppy one in the apartment?
Oh man, Jesus Christ, yeah. Yeah. I love him with all my heart, but I'm like, oh man, I'm like I am the absolute super duper neat freak where, I have to be like, Matt, and every time he knows he's gonna hear he knows he's gonna hear me say something whenever I say, Matt, I love you. Because I started off, with like a full on, like, I want you to know I love you. Like, at first, when I first started saying that, before saying, please don't put this there, or please, he would, be like, I love you too. And then, I'd cut him off and, flat out be like, okay, please don't, please put your protein powder over the sink. So, but yeah, he starts adjusting. I try to say it's like a housewife with it's living with a straight man. That's what I'm doing. I'm living with a straight man, and I know exactly what that means now. And the gays always make jokes about it, but I know exactly what it means to live with a straight man. And oh my god,
But I was gonna say, never discount an unguided bad bitches love triangle. You know what I'm saying? Damian Drake gets jealous of all the time Matt Vandergrift spends with Jai Vidal.
Oh man, that's a storyline right there. I thought you pitched something to me along the lines of a Sky High, something with a Sky High where we take one of the Sky, I don't know, what was it? Take
Alita.
Alita.
Yes, Alita, yes.
Oh wow. Well, on that note, gentlemen, that's going to wrap us for this episode of the DeFalco Files. Again, keep your eyes on the FSW network for $6.99. You get a bunch of content. It's really worth your while. Also, follow on YouTube, Twitch. Their channel on Twitch is great and is constantly running. Of course, listen to the Vegas BadBoyz of podcasting and all what we offer you guys. Thank you again, Jay, for joining us. And Joe, thank you as always. And everyone, until next week, we'll see you then.